Diesel electric road locomotives operating instructions, Section 4, Class BP, Baldwin locomotive, passenger one unit. General data locomotive builder, Baldwin locomotive, 6,000 horsepower, 22257 gear ratio, 100 miles an hour, 2A units. Wheel arrangement 4884, two articulated driving wheels, frame, and two idling wheels, trucks per unit, axles per unit. Driving 8, idle 4, traction motors per unit 8, wheel diameter 42 inches, journal size 7 inches, 7 inches, brake schedule, Westinghouse 24RL, braking, maximum overload dimensions 5 foot per unit, height 15 foot 5/8 of an inch, width 10 and 6 inches, length 91 foot 6 inches, total weight 593,710 pounds. Weight on the drivers 409,000 pounds. Steam generated water supply tank capacity 2,500 gallons. Fuel oil capacity 305,000 gallons. Sand capacity 40 cubic feet. Make and model Baldwin Locomotive Works 608 SC, horsepower governed with the RPM 1500 horsepower, 625 RPMs. Type inline 4 cycle, number cylinders 8, bore stroke 12 and 3/4 inch by 15 and a half. Idle speed 250 RPMs. Firing order 1 4 7 6 8 5 2 3. Number of engines per unit 2. Lubricating oil capacity each for the engine 190 gallons. Cooling water capacity each engine 300 gallons. Alright, diesel engine. The engine is 4 cycle running, 4 stroke with the piston complete with the line of complete with the cycle of the cylinder event. The engine has the 8 cylinders in line with the the use of the turbocharger so the furnace for the combustion of the air cylinder. The cycle events for the cylinder for the engine explained with the following paragraph. The piston moves downward in the intake stroke with the two intake valve to open with the air is forced into the cylinder by the supercharger approximately 5 to 6 pounds of pressure only with the following upward with the compression stroke with the piston through the air compressed to about 1/12 with the volume with all the valves in the cylinder ahead of the being closed shortly before the position reaches the upper dead center of the fuel atomized with the high pressure and is injected within the combustion chamber is ignited with the high temperature of the compressed air with the burning of the fuel charge with the rapidly build with the high pressure with the resulting expansion for the gas force of the piston downward for the power stroke. On the following upward exhaust stroke, the burnt gas is expelled through the tail exhaust valve. The cycle is then repeatedly being the intake stroke with the main generator auxiliary end of the generator turbocharged supercharged with retained mounted at the rear end of the engine. The lubricating oil pump with the cool watering pump is mounted on the front end of the right end of the left side of the engine are designated right and left hands respectively when facing the rear of the operator generator end of the diesel engine. The cylinders are numbered from rear to front, with the starting with the number 1 rear end of the ending with the number 8 of the front end. The direction of the rotating of the engine is counterclockwise when facing the rear of the generator end. Diesel engine governor and governor control. The hydraulic type of the governor of the engine, similar to the design function described in Section S, Class EP3. Governor is mounted with the right side. The near of the right end of the engine is driven from the camshaft by set with the bevel gears. Drive assembly lubricated with the engine lubricating oil through the separate line. The engine governor is controlled by the actuator with pneumatically operated with the throttle pipe with the air pressure from the multiple unit with the operation of all engine locomotive from the oil control stand is obtained with the train line throttle pipe with the throttle pipe air with the pressure is controlled with a 0 pound and 65 pound pressure by the position of the throttle lever of the engine control stand with the 0 pound to the idle position, 65 pound throttle lever in the wide open position, throttle lever in the idle position. The diesel engine should be run at 250 RPM with the throttle lever of the wide open position. The diesel engine should run at 625 RPM with the intermediate position of the throttle lever should result with the rotative speed of the diesel engine corresponding with extent movement. The overspeed stop device located with the right side of the diesel engine just below the engine governor with is driven by the bevel gears from the camshaft that consist of the flywheel containing the spring with the loaded with the counter weight which in the diesel engine the speed spread to reach with the 690 RPM with the latch and permits the spring loaded with the plunger to contact with the bell crank with the injector fuel control shaft, lay shaft moving in the full rack of the mount injection position, thereby stopping the diesel engine. The overspeed of the stop should must be manually reset with the inserting of the small bar through the hole in the housing into the tripping lever, the pushing down until the latch engines engages. The diesel engine cooling system. The cooling system of the several engines of the locomotive is similar to the independent of each other. The central figure water pump located at the front end of the engine draws water from the radiator head of the top of the system on the left side of the engine, circulates the water around the engine cylinder line through the jack of the engine water manifold through the weather. It passes to the radiator on the right side of the engine to the set with the radiators cross-connected with each other with a connected expansion tank lying from above and between them. The water temperature may be checked and dial-type thermostat located with the engine control panel, with the temperature of the cooling water system will vary between 150 and 160 degrees Fahrenheit and under normal operation conditions. The shutters to control cooling water temperatures are operated with the air control reservoir pressure with the magnetic valve. The shutter the fully open at all times, but the cooling fans are running with the airform from the control reservoir through the 17-pound reducing valve with the thermostatically controlled with the air valve with the graduate state operates pneumatically switched with the control with the shutter magnet valve with also speed of the motor-driven radiator cooling fans. The radiator cooling fans operate at 4 different rates with speed depending upon all the water temperature and as are supplied with the water with power for the main generator. The 3 position of the fan shutter valve control switch located on the engine control panel operates as follows. Off. Fans will not operate with the shutters are closed. On. Fans operated with the medium speed shutters are fully open, may be adjusted by hand. Automatic open, operating of the fans and shutters regulated with the temperature control switch located on the end of the frame of the fan assembly rear near the roof of the end of the radiator compartment with the graduate state that the pneumatic temperature control switch with the reducing valve with the gauge with the shutter operating mechanism with the manual operating handle. The hot water control switch set forth at 190 degrees Fahrenheit will activate the engine, shut down the solenoid valve to stop the engine when the engine cooling with the water temperature becomes excessive. The cooling system may be filled with water and enter either through the filler cap located on the roof over the radiator section through the filler lines located on each side of the unit. The water filling the cooling system is indicated by the glass of the water gauge located at the end of the expansion tank above the fan, the shutter, and control assembly. Water must flow, show the gauge glass at all times at the time the diesel engine being operated. If the locomotive is left standing with the diesel engine is to be shut down, where the danger is of freezing, steam may be supplied with the system. The other cooling system and water system should be drained. The fueling system of the cooling system and each of the system has the connection with the steam train line through the steam emissions of the valve located adjacent with the cooling water pump. The valve can be recognized with the presence of the check valve adjacent to and the same. The steam can be supplied with connecting the outside of the steam line with the steam train line for connecting at the either end of the operating of the steam generator to drain the engine cooling system, the open radiator valve, the drain valve of the water pump. Your diesel engine lubricating oil system. Lubricating oil system of several engine locomotives that are similar to the independent ECU of the lubricating oil system is carried with the crankcase for the engine bayonet type of the oil level gauge located on the right-hand side of the engine near the front end that shows the level of lubrication oil in the crankcase. The oil level shall be maintained between high and low with level marks on the gauge. Engine shut down, all allowing at least 5 minutes after the engine to stop before checking. Oil may be added to the system never necessary through the oil filler opening equipped with a screw cap to be located adjacent with the bayonet gauge. The lubricating oil pump located on the left side of the engine near the front of the draws oil with the crankcase through the suction line with the check valve with the suction strainer of the pumps through the oil cooling radiator, the metal edge with the type of the strainer and internal head of the where it flows with the bearing position, pistons, internal parts with the requiring lubrication of branch with the lubricating oil with the pump discharge that carries the one oil three bypass type filters through which the oil returns into the crankshaft. The bypass filters are located on the right side of the engine. The flow air through the oil cooling radiator is controlled by the shutter and the fans, but the thermostatically regulated with the temperature of the engine cooling water. The all type of the gauge located with the engine control panel show the lubricating oil pressure delivered. The lubricating oil headed with the show the about 65 pounds of pressure fuel engine speed. At the lower speed of the pressure will proportionally lower at nose time should the pressure drop below 20 pounds. If lubricating oil pressure cannot be maintained with above 20 pounds, the pressure of the engine must be shut down. The oil pressure of the engine headed with the regulated with the bypass valve with the set and 65 pounds. Any of the pressure excess of this will cause the oil to be bypassed with the crank of the case and the engine. The pressure of the system becomes excessive with the relief of the bypass with the valve with the set at 90 pounds with the spill pump with the output with the crank case. The pressure drop of the radiator system exceeds 25 pounds due to the obstruction radiators will be passed by a relief valve. A hand-operated pump with adjacent with a mechanical-driven lubricating oil pump to provide with the prime of the start system when required. Lubricating oil pressure switch connected with the engine header operates shut down diesel engine sound alarm. The light of the engine stop light when the lubricating oil pressure drops 15 pounds. Diesel engine fuel oil system. Fuel oil system for the several diesel engine locomotives are similar to the independent each other, except for the two engines receive their fuel from a common fuel supply tank on each of the unit. The two fuel transfer pumps are connected with the valve of the emergency operation. The fuel supply tank is incorporated with the frame of the locomotive unit, may be filled with from either side of the sight glass of the gauge from the provided on each side of the unit and indicates the level of fuel oil on the tank. Electrical driven fuel transfer pump located on the left side of the diesel engine draws the fuel from the supply tank through the suction line with the metal edge of the type of the strainer, delivers it through a triple unit cotton twine line tip on type filter and two fuel oil manifold, which is connected with each of the fuel injector pump. The valve pipe with the connection between the discharge line with the both transfer pumps on the units permit operating with the both diesel engine with the one pump, and if the other pump fails with the valve with this connecting pump, the valve in the connecting pipe must be opened to accomplish that. This pipe should be used only in a case of emergency. A duplex type dial type of the gauge is located with the engine control panel with the one hand show for the fuel and pressure with the discharge at the side of the fuel transfer pump. The other hand show for the pressure of the return and of the fuel oil manifold. The gauge hand should show the normally 35 pounds to 25 pounds respectively. Fuel oil pressures are controlled by the two pressure relief valves that are located on the diesel chart of the fuel transfer pump set with approximately 35 pounds. The other located with the return end of the fuel oil manifold, approximately 25 pounds. The fuel pressure of the relief of the either side of the fuels will return the oil to the supply tank. The individual fuel injection connected with the high pressure point with the individual indicator provided with each of the cylinder with the diesel engine cam on the camshaft that operates the fuel injection pump at the proper time with the delivery of the fuel to the injector with the stroke of the fuel injection pump that's constant at all times. The amount of the fuel injected with each of the stroke with the control with the engine governor with which varies effective stroke with the fuel engine injection pump. The emergency fuel cutoff switch valve is located with the suction line with the fuel supply tank with the floor is left on the unit between the two diesel engines with the may be closed by pulling either one of the rings until located with the valves. One on the bulkhead between the fireman's position on the cab, one on the below the skirt on the right side of the unit near the cab ladder. The branch from the fuel transfer pump discharge line with connected to the engine shutdown fuel solenoid valve on the left side of the diesel engine. With the circuit of the solenoid valve is made up with the fuel oil pressure flow for the engine with the shutdown cylinder located on the right side of the engine pushes it its piston out and permitting the movement of the fuel racks under the control of the engine governor. Opening the circuit for the solenoid valve permits for the fuel oil to the flow with the supply of the tank and spring in the shutdown cylinder. Move the piston into position which holds the fuel racks into the non-injection position, stopping the diesel engine. Electrical power system. The main generator. Each unit contains two diesel engines with 1,500 horsepower. Each of the main generator connected to each of the diesel engine by coupling with the generator. Self-ventilated feeds the power with the four traction motor under half of the main frame directly under the engine. Also, the radiator fan motors, the traction motor blower motors are on the unit that are fed by the main generator by the diesel engine, which is first put on the line with the two diesel engine running. One which is operating with the blower motor shuts down. The other will automatically feed the blower motors. Or auxiliary generator exciter. The auxiliary generator exciter set to the mounted below the driven each main generator. The two auxiliary generators on each locomotive unit operate with the parallel if both engines are running and located are used for the charge with the stop that charges the battery on the unit to supply the low voltage power. The exciter supplies the power to the main generator field windings, especially wanted to maintain the constant power output of the main generator. Your control stand at the engine position contains the throttle level, the reverse level, the non-transition level provided with the class of locomotives not equipped with the manual transmission or dynamic braking. The throttle level controls the engine speed pneumatically and controlling the engine governor through the throttle of the pipe of the pneumatic governor actuator connecting the motor for the generator running position. Also operates the pneumatic load control actuator. The reverse lever operates the reverser electrical pneumatic control. Traction motor. Each unit has 8 traction motors with one of each of the driving axles geared with the spur gears. The 22 to 57 ratio of the 4 traction motors connected in each of the main generator. The motors are permanently connected with a series of parallel the transmission consistent with the 2 steps of the traction motor field winding, which takes place at approximately automatically at 33 to 52 degrees, 33 to 52 miles an hour, respectively. Backward transition automatically. Single motor driven power blower 2 per unit is used with the force of ventilating the 4 traction motors armed with the diesel engine. The power equipment of the cabinet. One power equipment cabinet for the both engine for the unit located on the right hand easel containing the following apparatus. 4 main power contactors operate with the air pressure through the magnetic valve marked P1 and P2 for the number 1 engine, P3 and P4 for the number 2 engine. 16 traction motor shunt contactors marked as the M to 1 M8. Inclusive of the number 1 engine for the M9 to the M16, inclusive for the number 2 engine. 2 reversers operated with the air pressure for the magnet valve, one out of each of the group for the 4 motors. 2 blower motor fields shutting the contactors marked B1 and B2. Two blower alarm relays marked BR1, BR2 for the blown fuse with no voltage blown motors. Two ground relays marked GR1 and GR2 for the grounds and high voltage circuits. But the manual reset button can be cut without, and the emergency open with a sealed knife, which should switch mounted with the relay. One blower motor fuse is 110 amperes. Resistor of the traction motor and blower motor field shutting with the four-wheel slip. The control equipment cabinet on the control equipment cabinet in the multi-engine for the unit located for the left-hand edge of each for the unit containing one standby lighting transfer switch for the external power on the outside of the cabinet, three indicating lights, one for the blower stop and low indicating, two for the ground indication, and one of each for the engine, one for each engine. For the blower motor contactors so interlocked with the blowers operating with the engine, which the first puts online marked as B3 and B5 for the number 1 engine, B4 and B6 for the number 2 engine. Open battery knife switch connects the battery to the auxiliary circuit that accepts the lights on one control contactor marked the CR, one control relay marked CR1. Four engine starting armature contactors marked G1 and G3 for the number 1 engine, G2 and G4 for the number 2 engine. One starting relay marked PT. For the relay slip relays, WS1 and WS2 for the number 1 engine, WS3 and WS4 for the number 2 engine. On emergency engine stop contactors marked ES. 4-fan blower motor field shutting relays marked R1 and R3 for the number 1 engine, R2 and R4 for the number 4 engine. Field generator field contactors marked GF, the starting shunt with the field weakening resistor GF1 running field number 1, field generator number 1 engine, field GF number 1, field generator number 2 engine, generator field 11 starting number 1 engine, starting field number 1 engine, GF field 21 starting field number 2 engine. Two exciter field contactors marked EF1 for the number 1 engine, EF2 for the number 2 engine. Two power contactors, the FR for the number 1 engine, FR2 for the number 2 engine. Traction motor field shunting relays marked FS1 and FS2 control the main generator voltage diesel engine unit with the first put in the online. 10 radiator for the van motor contactors for F1 to F5 inclusive for the number 1 engine, F11 through F15 inclusive for the number 2 engine. For traction motor cutout switches marked the TMCO1 and TMCO4 inclusive. The two power cutout circuit breakers, X amperes marked as PCO1 for the number 1 engine, PCO2 for the number 2 engine. Two engine shutdown alarm relays marked as SG1 for the number 1 and SG for the number 2. SG2 for the number 2 engine. On engine room lighting master circuit breaker 35 ampere, one fan shutter control fuse 15 amperes, one main control fuse 30 amperes, two radiator fan motor hose fuses 175 amperes. Auxiliary equipment cabinet. The one auxiliary equipment cabinet for the bolt ends for the unit located at the rear end of each of the cabinet containing one emergency circuit breaker, the 15 amperes operating shutdown contact ES, and the one battery charge indicator with one battery charge indicator selector switch for the indication output of the auxiliary generator for the battery charge of the discharge, two reverse current relays, one for the auxiliary generator for each for the engine, two voltage regulators, one for the auxiliary generator for each for the engine, two battery charge for contactors marked A1 for the number 1 engine, A2 for the number 2 engine, two auxiliary fuses for the 150 ampere auxiliary generator fuses 150 ampere in the cabinet. A1 unit is located with the following: the two train foam cap signals headlight fuse of 60 amperes, one main generator transfer switch, one operating train foam cap signals headlight, 1.5 of the battery's voltage in case of the motor generator set failure. Control push button switch box located on the left side of the control stand containing the following of the push button switches controlling establish multiple unit power control through the throttle reverse lever to reverse the field contact with the main power contactor, complete the circuit with the master magnetic valve of the cab signal control, complete the circuit of the cab signals, emergency engine stop operates the emergency engine stop with the contactor shutting down all the engine locomotive. Attendant call defroster, motor marker lights, gauge lights, and number lights. Each of these switches is found with a separate 15 ampere fuse located in the switch box locating device at the top of the box with removable key locks for the control and cab signal switches against the unauthorized personnel. Engine control on of the mount on the left-hand wall adjacent with each of the engines containing the following: engine start circuit breaker 15 amperes, engine start push button number 1, engine start push button number 2, engine fuel pump circuit breaker number 15 ampere. The engine isolation switch with the opposition engine will run only at the idling speed, will not provide the power for the locomotive when the on position the engine is under control of the engine man at the throttle lever. Engine auxiliary generator field circuit breaker, the 15 ampere, the radiator fan shutter, the control switch, the 3-position switch. Each of the panel contains the engine man water, temperature gauge, and lubricating fuel oil pressure gauge. Load control. Control to prevent overloading with the diesel engine provided with the means for the carbon stated with the load regulator, the carbon sat with the connected with the receiver with the exciter of the fuel four-pole field with the hydraulically operated with the resistance change with the device mounted on the engine consisting of the carbon pile resistor held under the pressure by the spring. The spring is sensitive to changes in the governor and also the pneumatically connection with the change within the throttle pressure gauge change with the vary with the current through the exciter field there thus vary the main generator output permitting the diesel engine to run on uniform speed output without overloading each of the throttle lever position. A power knockout switch. The pneumatically operated switch located with the nose of each of the unit which remove the control of the power circuit to produce the same result as the main moving throttle in the I position operates when the emergency brake application is made with the dead man. Overspeed control is actuated to reset the switch as the throttle. Lever must be returned to idle position. Brake pipe pressure restored. Master control magnet valve. The valve designated to MCV located with the nose of each of the unit which is operated by closing the control push button switch with the open supply air with the control stand, the throttle pipe with the multiple unit control of the diesel engine speed. Throttle unloaded magnet valve. The valve located with the front end of each of the diesel engine designated TV1 number 1 engine, TV2 number 2 engine. The actuated wheel slip relays the isolation switch while the off position permit the diesel engine for the running idling speed only with the circle of throttling. Unloading the magnet valve is open. Diesel engine speed is under control of the throttle lever. Engine shutdown switch solenoid valve. One located on each of the diesel engine near the fuel transfer pump designated the SDV1 for the number 1 engine, SDV2 for the number 2 engine, cutting off the fuel pressure for the engine shutdown cylinder, causing the fuel racks to move, no injection position, with the stopping the diesel engine. The valve operates to stop the diesel engine when the engine stops will switch for the off position when the engine in the water high temperature lubricating oil pressure when the switch operates. Our compressed air system. Each of the diesel engine with locomotive drive with the direct current connected with the two-stage thermal cylinder air compressor. For the compressor has the oil pump, the pressure lubricating to the oil level, and the crankcase should be checked up with the bandit type of the gauge for the intercooler with between the two stages with the 50-pound safety valve. Main reserve pressure for control with electrically actuated. The governors just set up the cup and the 125-pound pressure to cut with 140-pound pressure for the main reserve of the protective against the excessive pressure of 165-pound safety valve. The discharge piping at each compressor and 150-pound safety valve located in the piping adjacent with the main reserve. The automatic drain valve that operated with under the control of the air compressor governor is located with the main reserve pipe and the valve that operate with the automatically drain condensation for the main reserve. In addition, with these drains that each of the unit equipped with the manually operated drain cox means for which the condensation may be drained. Air supplied with the control reserve through the reducing valve set at 70 pounds. The control air is used with the operated reverse and main control pump contact is furnished the air supply through the throttle control pneumatically actuated control the air used also to the radiator shuttle through the separate reducing valve is set to 17 pounds to operate the radiator fan shuttle with controls. The control air pressure gauge is located on the nose of each unit. The main reserve pressure is used with the operating of the air brake with the system, window show, wiper, the horns and bells and sanders. Our air brake system. The class of the locomotive is the type of the 24RL air brake equipment of the K-Z rotary valves. There are 20 brake cylinders on each of the unit, where they're provided with a six-sided vent with the cutout cock. The cutout cocks are in the group of three. One group located on the right side of the unit and under the operating cab. The other group on the left side near the rear end of the unit, and one cutout cock on each of the group. The cut out of both brake cylinders on the idling truck with the other on its respective end of the unit, and the other two cutout cocks on each of the group, each for the cut out and four drive brake cylinders to each on each side of the unit. Locomotive operation, inspection, preparation for the service. After locomotives and properly inspected engines positions, control switch, see the throttles in idle position, see the reverse levers off, close the control push button switch at the engine of the position throughout train idling. The Engineman position with the trailing unit, see the throttle level in the idle position, see the reverse, the lever is removed. See the control push button is open, the switch box is located, and the key removed. At the control equipment cabinet of each of the units, see that all the fuses are placed, all switches and circuits and breakers are closed. At each of the diesel engine control panel, place the fuel pump circuit breaker on the on position. Note the fuel oil pressure indicated with the gauge. Place the engine stop circuit breaker on the on position. Alarm that should sound. Please press the engine start button, push button number 1. Hold until the engine fires with at least 20 pounds lubricating oil pressure obtained. If the engine does not turn fast enough to start with the cranking speed, the increase for the pressing engine start push button number 2 while the push number 1 is held. Place the isolation switch on the on position. See the radiator fan shutter control switch in the automatic position. After both the engine and the unit have been started, place the auxiliary generator field circuit breaker on each of the end of the control panel with the unit with the opposite position. An auxiliary equipment cabinet of each with the see that all the fuses are in place for the check of the battery indicated with all the positions selected for the switch for the output with the auxiliary generator and battery. in charge of moving the locomotive in the road operator. Place the foot on the dead man pedal, release the air brakes. Plan 2, place the reverse lever in forward or reserve position, whatever position as required. Move the throttle to the first notch position, pause the until the load animators indicate the current. The throttle lever should be advanced slowly to the position necessary for starting the train, and starting the heavy train with carrying must be exercised properly to control slack action before accelerating. Use the load ammeter. The division between the white and red scale of the load ammeter indicates the permissible continuous current, which is 180 amperes. The open operation of the loads above the 1800 amperes is permissible under only any one of the following limitations, with the throttle is wide open. 2,000 amperes of 40 minutes, 2,200 amperes of 20 minutes, 2,600 amperes 10 minutes, 3,000 amperes 6 minutes, 3,660 amperes 4 minutes. If the load ampere reading is different with the higher reading of the governor note, if it only operate at a low below the maximum continuous rating after operating any one of the above overload limitation, tonnage must be reduced to help obtain attained. Operation with load ammeter. If necessary to operate with the load ammeter with the throttle lever in wide open, this is the minimum continuous speed of 17.8 miles an hour to avoid an overload limit. Operation speed at 17.8 miles an hour permissible under any of the following limitations for the throttle lever at the wide open position: 60 miles an hour, 14 miles, 40 minutes, 13.5 miles an hour, 20 minutes, 10 miles an hour, 10 minutes, 7.5 miles an hour, 6 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 miles an hour, 4 minutes. Isolating the diesel engine. If necessary to isolate the diesel engine, place the isolation switch in the off position, putting the diesel engine online. If necessary to put the diesel engine online, regardless of the throttle lever position, place the isolation switch on the on position. Diesel engine will automatically come up gradually to speed corresponding to the throttle position. Emergency engine stop. Stop all the diesel engine emergencies accomplished with closing any of the emergency engine stop switches. All emergency engine stop switches must be open position before the diesel engine can be restarted. Ground relay operations. The ground relay operator of the diesel engine should be isolated with the ground relays reset with the diesel engine placed back on the line. But when ground relay operates the ground indicating the light with the cab will light with the indicating light with the diesel engine involved with the light controlling equipment cabinet. The speed of the diesel engine will reduce the idle power with the remove the traction motor associated with it. If the ground relay fails to remain reset with the traction motor cutout switch is located with the control equipment cabinet that may be operated with the cutting out one power traction motor. Remove the ground diesel engine may be put on the line operating with the other pair of traction motor. Note when the pair of traction motors cut out with load is indicated with the load ammeter, but the engine must be restricted at 1/2 of the current rating. Engine or blower stop warning indicator. The engine or blower stop indicator with the light is located with the fireman's position. Each of the operating cabinets light indicates the diesel engine stop the failure of the traction motor of the blower, and it also indicates the operation attendant call push button with the alarm will sound when the all blower stop and indicating light will be located with the control equipment cabinet of each for the unit. Alarm due to the blower failure isolation switch of the both the engine of the unit should be placed in the off position. Check with the blower motor fuse to renew. If necessary, the unit must now not be operated under the load with the blower shut down. If, however, the alarm is due to the engine shut down, though may be covered with high cooling, water temperature, low lubricating oil pressure, diesel engine overspeed stop, lack of fuel. Check the water temperature and set the check shutter and fuel fan operating, renewing, fusing, and necessary checking the cooling water fuel level. Check the fuel oil pressure. Check the overspeed stop. Check the lubricating oil level of the crankcase engine and examine the external plumbing lubricating oil system for leaks. Notes: when attempting to start the diesel engine, if no fuel pressure of the tank, check the fuel pump for the plumbing. If not, check the fuel pump circuit breaker on the engine control panel with the emergency engine shutdown switches. 4 per locomotive. If the fuel pump is running, check the fuel supply and the emergency fuel cutoff valve with the fuel oil suction line for the pump to leaks. If this diesel engine does not rotate with the engine, the start push button is pressed. Check the isolation switch or the position for the engine stop circuit breakers. In the on position, check the starting contact with the control equipment in the cabinet. Diesel engine rotate if it does not fire. Check the overspeed stop and reset the necessary. When the diesel engine is rotating to the position of the engine shutdown circuit, the cylinders moves out of the permanent operation injector lay shaft. The locomotive fails to move with the diesel engine running and the throttle open. With the following checks should be made. See the reverse level in proper position, brake or release. See that the control push button is closed with the check the ampere control fuse for the push button switch box of the control unit. See that the cutout cock of the control air supply with the control stand is open. Check the control reservoir pressuring the gauge and the nose of the control unit. Check the 30 ampere control fuse for the controlling equipment cabinet with the controlling unit. Check the third position of all the power cutout with circuit breaker with the isolation switch. 5. 5. If the locomotive moves with one or more several diesel engine failures to deliver the power, or the following checks should be made. With the C, the isolation switch on the on position, check the ground relays, reset the trip, check the control reserve pressure. With C, that all the starting contactors are open, check the throttle pipe with the leak, and includes the connection between the units. C, the cutout cock and throttle pipe are fully open when the can change from the operating end before the preceding end of the being cut in. C, that the control push button with the switch box is located with the control push button switch open. When lower battery conditions exist for the lead operating with the unit, both auxiliary edge generators and operative locomotive may be controlled with the operating cab with the unit valves. Open the battery switch to the lead unit, close the control push button switch on both units. With the cutout cocks and air supply to control stand on the trailing unit, close the control in contact with the CR and control equipment cabinet with the leading with the unit using a flag stick. Alright, diesel electric locomotive operating locomotive instruction section 5, the American Locomotive Company passenger 3 unit locomotive.